It was just a normal day on December 2nd, 2016 at Comic Ping Pong in Washington, D.C. Now take a minute to imagine what it must be like at a place where you're trying to be the next Forrest Gump and eat a lot of pizza. So that means you got probably a lot of hipsters and probably a few too many people who could use extra employment. But all of that changed when 28-year-old Edgar Welch walked in and fired his AR-15 2 times into the air. Now, thankfully, no one was injured, and the police quickly subdued him. But there's a problem. What was Welch doing there? Because it became clear after being interrogated by police that he was not there to commit a mass shooting or even to injure a patron. No, Edgar Welch was there for 2 reasons, and they go down to 2 words: fake news. And not just any fake news story, but one that goes by the name of Pizzagate. Now, no, unfortunately, I know what you're thinking. This was not some super awesome tailgate where they handed out free pizza. This was actually a fake news story that was started on Twitter and that claimed that presidential candidate Hillary Clinton had tried to run a child sex trafficking ring out of Comet Ping Pong. And Edgar Welch was there to confront the owners over this story. Now, before issues like the 2014 Ebola crisis and the 2016 presidential election, many of us may have just raised our hands and said, "This guy's crazy." But after those crises and many more, we no longer have the ability to do that. Because the story of Edgar Welch is just one little piece in a much larger puzzle that's confounding everyone, from social media giants and traditional news outlets to even democratic governments and its citizens. That is, what is fake news? Why is it spreading so fast? And why does it keep popping up in conflicts all over the globe? Well, in addition to answering those questions, I'm going to make one additional claim that I hope that you'll find to actually be true. That is, our predetermined political beliefs and our values can cause us all to fall prey to fake news, regardless of our party affiliation. But good news for you, we actually have ways to fight back, so that way we never have to suffer this in the 2020 election or future medical scares. So, starting off, we've all heard the term, but let's actually define it. What is fake news? Well, according to the Journal of Informal Logic, they state that it is the typical presentation of false or misleading information where such information is sent out by design. Now, the words authentic and deliberate are key here, because let's look at an example, a place I love to go for some great laughs, that is The Onion. Now, The Onion is a satirical news site that uses satire and humor to try and roast politicians. But it is not seeking to be authentic news. Therefore, it allows us today to focus on social media posts, information, and other messages that do try and help the audience to be fooled by both authentic information and through a deliberate design. Which brings us to our first real question, that is, just how did we get here with fake news? Well, unfortunately, the reason is essentially because we like to gossip like teenagers. And it spreads so fast and is believed by so many because it preys on 3 of our most basic psychological predispositions: experience, fear, and humor. According to communication professor Sean Westwood, he outlines in a recent study that when presented with fake news, we are significantly more likely to believe it if we agree with the information being presented. And Dr. Westwood outlined that this held true even when little or no evidence was presented within the article. And this helps to explain why 2 of the most famous and well-known headlines from the 2016 election had the following fake news titles. Donald Trump in 1998. If I were to run for president, it would be as a Republican because they have the dumbest group of voters. And it's over. Hillary's ISIS email just linked, and it's worse than anyone could have imagined. Pretty subtle, right? Pretty subtle headlines. And here's the thing. All of this information, this data, tends to support what I call the reassuring association effect. That is, we feel better about information we believe or opinions we hold if our opposition is portrayed in such an illogical or emotional manner. Think of it essentially as a psychological version of saying, "Whew, thank God we're not an idiot like that person." When in reality, they actually might be the idiot. Additionally, according to Dr. Danielle Young, a communication and psychology expert, she had an interesting study that talked about how fear and humor play such an important role. And it has to do with our brain. Because according to Dr. Young's research, we have a finite capacity to store, process, and recall information. Therefore, it forces us to be able to use context clues and other emotional situations to help in that encoding and decoding process. The two emotional cues that Dr. Young found to be most successful in the study of fake news: fear and humor. And this helps to explain why the second most shared fake news title of the 2016 election was this: WikiLeaks confirms Hillary sold weapons to ISIS, then drops another bombshell. These normal run-of-the-mill headlines, right? You can't tell these at all. But here's the thing. This research and these titles help to shed light on a truly harrowing statistic. According to research done of the top 20 most shared fake news articles and the top 20 most shared real news articles, the researchers found that the top 20 fake news articles had been shared, commented, and liked on Facebook 1.4 million more times than the top 20 real news articles. And what this really helps to show is that fake news is not this theoretical problem. It's a problem all around us. And there is no better example of this than the poor story of volunteer nurse Casey Hickox. And to tell the story, I want you to come back with me to 2014, where we all seemingly and unfortunately just lost our minds with the Ebola scare, where the Ebola virus had sprouted in West Africa and went to other places. Now, like many volunteers with Doctors Without Borders, Hickox was there in specifically Sierra Leone to help treat those afflicted with Ebola. And when she returned to the United States, she landed in Newark Airport, New Jersey, and she'd already been tested at this point 3 times and passed every test for Ebola. But she showed up with a temperature of 101 degrees, and so they put her into quarantine. But here's where things really get bizarre, because after 80 hours in quarantine, the doctors were able to determine that she was suffering from having been in a plane that was too hot for too long. And you might think, what's up with this 80 hours? Why was she there for so long? Well, you might guess it. What's the reason? Fake news. You got it. And that's because around the same time, there was actually a fake news story that had spread across the United States that a doctor and a family from Texas had gone to Africa, had come back to Texas and infected an entire town with Ebola. Now, this was obviously fake, but governors like New Jersey Governor Chris Christie saw that and saw the report saying, I'm not going to let this happen in my state. So, back to Hickox. After she leaves Newark Airport in New Jersey, she goes back to her home state of Maine. What's waiting for her there? Well, a public declaration by Maine Governor Paul LePage that she needs to be quarantined an additional 21 days. Here's the thing, even though she beat that in court and didn't have to serve it because it violated her civil rights, just for good measure, she gets back to her house in Maine, and what's waiting for her? A voicemail from her landlord saying, please move out immediately. God. And you thought you had it bad traveling back home. Imagine being poor Casey Hickox. But here's the thing. The worst part of fake news and Ebola was not here in the United States. It was felt in Africa. Because at the origin of the outbreak, there had been a fake news story that had spread across Western Africa that you could prevent getting Ebola simply by ingesting salt and bathing in salt water. Now, the World Health Organization caught wind of this, publicly released a statement and said, this is not true. There is no way that this can actually prevent Ebola or solve it. Please stop. And they even publicly released that it came from a teenager from Nigeria who was sending a text message as part of a text chain. But the damage was already done. Because according to the Nigerian Health Ministry, up to 500 people across Africa had to be hospitalized. And nearly 100 had died by ingesting too much salt and overexposure to salt water. Fake news is truly like a disease, and it especially preys on those who don't have the resources to fight back. And when they don't, the consequences are truly fatal. So, what can we do? Are we all essentially just little minions as we watch our big brother overlords at Facebook and Twitter take over? Well, it might feel that way sometimes, but the answer is no. There are tried and true strategies to help us fight back. And it starts with being able to spot what real versus fake news is. Recent research done by a trio of University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee professors shed light on the top 50 shared fake news articles in 2016. And they found some remarkable similarities between the titles and content of those articles. within the titles, they found that the proper nouns and the length of the title was significantly longer than real news articles. And in addition, they also found that there was way more proper nouns and capitalized letters. And in the content itself, they found it was largely just a rehashing of negative content, and that they didn't provide any new information that wasn't already shared on the title. And this can help to explain why so many fake news articles have titles like, hey, you be really scared by this thing over here. And those types of reactions are not meant to prey on our logical responses, but really on our emotional ones. So the next time you see an article title that has this, it's true, Ireland accepting Trump refugees from America. And you think, sounds a little too end of the world-esque to be true. I don't know about that one. Well, you know now that you're right, and you know enough not to share. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, it is time that we remember the lessons of our best teachers growing up. That we look at articles and don't just believe statistics we see. Go verify it from another source. Go to those same articles and see, are there links embedded in it that I can check and verify information? Go and seek out articles that at the bottom have additional resources to educate yourself on. And probably, in my opinion, most importantly, it is time that we accept something really true about those who create fake news. They do so because there is a basic instinct guiding us that leads fake news to spread. And that's our need to be right. We want to be right, and we want to show the world that our opinions, our values are right as well, and we share fake news. The problem with that is, it prevents us from truly accepting something supremely important. That is, my challenge to you, anytime you feel that need to share fake news or look at it, I want you to think, am I doing this to prove that I'm right, or am I doing it to educate those around me? Because there is shared beauty in accepting truths, finding genuine human connection from those who see those truths with us. And when we embrace it and not run from it, it's not just us who benefit, it's all of us. So, today, hopefully I convinced you the problem of fake news is in fact real, and no longer can we go back to the days where we sit on our computer, see an article that outrages us, share it, and call it a day. We know now there are too many lives at stake. Therefore, it is incumbent upon all of us to be better, to be smarter, to work together, to make sure we're not the next ones driving up to a Comet ping pong because of Pizzagate. Thank you.